I'm gonna vote for me. So you know that.
All right, we can go ahead and get started. And as the commissioner members are aware, the chair and vice chair are not able to attend tonight's meeting. Therefore, the planning commission is required to appoint a temporary chairman for tonight's meeting. This will require a motion and a vote to appoint the temporary chairperson.
Motion to appoint temporary chairperson Lucas.
And I will second. Okay. And then I guess I'll call over for a roll call vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right, Mr. Lucas, you have the floor.
I will call order. But we're going through the members. Hennis, Commissioner Member Hines, Lucas here. Whitmore
Here.
Commissioner Member Alphen
Here.
Please take notice that in the April 13th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting we held by electronic means and pursuant to a conductivity of government ordinance effective on April 6, 2022 due to threats posed by COVID-19 pandemic to the health, safety, and welfare of the public. While some commission members may participate remotely, staff will be presenting as normal in the Board of Supervisors meeting room on 150 South Main Street, Lexington, Virginia 24450. In addition to citizens attending the meeting in person, citizens have several options to view or participate in the Zoom meeting webinars described below. We'll do our best to take citizens' comment remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer comment. One, join the Rockbridge County Planning Commission Zoom webinar. The link is available on the county website. Copy into the address line on your browser. Two, to join by telephone, you may dial into one of the members listed on the county website. Webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after fact can do so on the Rockbridge County Planning Commission YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the cell phones. All right, thank you. We will raise the hand. You will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise hand button on the bottom of your Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. And cell phones, if everybody doesn't mind it, please mute them so they don't ring. Thank you. At this time, we proceed with the meeting. Citizen comments.
And this is for anything that's not on the agenda. At this time, we'll recognize any citizen comments that wish to speak for anything that's not included on the agenda.
Step forward.
I appreciate your time. Just as a point of order, when the public hearing closes and you take additional information on a matter, the public can't comment on that additional information.
Once we've closed the public hearing and we continue to next month, we usually do not take public comment.
Even if you take in additional information after that close, that's what I was wondering.
We usually don't. No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? If not, let me check my Zoom. If anyone would like to speak with any items not on the agenda, please use your raise your hand button now. Not seeing any, we will turn it back to Chairman.
Approval of March 9th, 2022 meeting minutes.
As you know, staff was unable to prepare those minutes, so we will have to essentially double up next month. I apologize.
Board reports.
At the two board reports for you, at the March 14th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Supervisors, they approved the Season Yields Farm in the Rafine area. That's a farmer's market, and then also the Fairfields Farmer Market in downtown Rafine. Both were approved as outdoor event applications that go directly to the Board of Supervisors. In addition to that, at their March 28th meeting, they approved the Huff application for the waiver of the timeframe requirements associated with the family subdivision, as recommended by the Planning Commission. They approved the Stonewall Associates / Modine warehousing in the Stonewall Square Shopping Center, as recommended by the Planning Commission, and they approved the Tolly rezoning on the corner, Timothy Tolly rezoning, currently owned by Spirit Wind, on the corner of Sterrett Road and Route 11. They did delay taking action on the IOCA application. That's of course the second application associated with that family is tonight, and the board felt that it would be beneficial to tackle both of those at the same time at the board level. So they're tentatively scheduled for the 25th of this month.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Moving forward, St. Dunstan's Academy, 54 Allen Creek Lane, Goshen, Virginia, application for special exception permit for a private school in agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district.
All right, if you bear with me, have a brief PowerPoint presentation. All right, this is a continued meeting, not a continued public hearing. To briefly review the property details, the property under consideration is owned by Daley W. and Donna J. Johnson and Stuart B. Jones, associated several mini tax parcels. The Johnson tracts total consist of 71.91 acres, and the Jones tracts, which consist of 4 separate parcels, consist of 193.93 acres total. The property is located in the agricultural and limited use district A1 and the agricultural and general use district A2. All proposed facilities are located in the A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-20 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. So review the special exception process so far. At the February 9th, 2022 Planning Commission, the Planning Commission held its public hearing. During the meeting, citizens expressed concerns on additional traffic associated with school, access for emergency vehicles, shared right-of-way, right-of-way concerns, taxing implications, noise associated with the proposed use, floodplain concerns, impacts on adjacent landowners, and conflicting with the existing land uses. Along with those concerns, at the February 9th, 2022 meeting, others expressed support for the proposed use, stating that the school would be an asset to the area. The Planning Commission continued that public hearing until the March 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, and again continued the public hearing. At that time, the public hearing was closed. The Planning Commission postponed taking action on the application in order for the applicant to provide additional information on the potential location of wells and drain fields and or alternative septic systems. And also explore any issues with the shared right-of-way, maintenance costs, and provide additional information on the proposed school curriculum. The requested information is included in the April package. As far as conditions that could be utilized, could be associated with the special exception, these are the draft conditions that were discussed and slightly modified from last month, but the intent's the same. And if acceptable, I'd like to just go ahead and read those now. Number 1, the private school shall be developed in substantial compliance with the master plan for St. Dunstan's Academy, dated February 12th, 2022, with a revision date of March 9th, 2022, prepared by Fry Associates Architecture. Number 2, the access to the private school shall be along Allen Creek Lane, including new access road and proposed extension of Allen Creek Lane, as shown on the reference plan. The fire lane, as shown on the reference plan, will be limited for emergency purposes only. Number 3, road and stream crossings along Allen Creek Lane, including the new access road and proposed extension of Allen Creek Lane, shall be designed, built, and maintained to accommodate fire apparatuses, ambulances. The road and stream crossing plans will be reviewed and approved by the Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management. Number 4, all new buildings will be located outside of the 100-year floodplain. Number 5, total number of students not to exceed 60. Number 6, the school will be limited to boarding students only, no day students, and limited to 9th, 10th, and 11th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. Number 7, development shall be commenced within 3 years from date of approval. Number 8, all trash will be taken directly to the landfill and not the county collection centers or green boxes. Number 9, lighting shall be in compliance with section 1303 of the Rockbridge County Land Development Regulations. And number 11, the last proposed conditions is approval contingent on VDOT, Virginia Department of Transportation, VDOT, Health Department, Building Department, Department of Education, and Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management approvals. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Thomas Fickley with the St. Dunstan's Academy.
Thank you, Mr. Sladen. Thank you, members of the commission, for continuing to hear our case. There's not a whole lot of new information for me to share with you outside of the memos that we submitted about our septic sites, our educational plan, and our plan for shared road access or shared road maintenance. Are those things, I guess I want to focus there. Are there any questions y'all have for me on the progress that we made on those 3 items over the last couple of weeks? Is there anything I can clarify or expound on?
Good.
Good. Thank you for providing the information.
Absolutely. Thank you.
We got nothing else from you. Yes, it's thank you.
Well, we've all made our site visits. I think we've, my questions have been satisfactorily answered. And since the beginning, I have sort of leaned towards supporting this project. I've weighed this out, and I'm going to continue to support this project, and I'm ready to move. So we'll use your motion, Vicky. Are you prepared for a motion?
I'm ready for a motion.
I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the special exception permit to develop and operate a private school in agricultural and general use A2 zoning district per LDR section 603.03-20 on property identified as tax map 9-1-4 and 9-1-1B totaling 71.9 acres plus or minus, and on the property identified as tax map 9-A-1 9-12C2 9-11B1 and 9-12B2 totaling 193 acres plus or minus in the Walkers Creek Magisterial District be approved with the following conditions. We've just read those conditions. Would you like me to read them again?
I don't think that's necessary. They're verbatim. They are verbatim.
They are verbatim.
Of what was prepared in the pre-prepared motion.
Yes.
One of the pre-prepared motions, I should say, yes.
I'll second the
A
motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
So I was able to tell one citizen this prior to the meeting, and I'm checking my date here. Of course, the Planning Commission plays an advisory role to the Board of Supervisors. With that, this is a recommendation to approve from the Planning Commission, and the Board of Supervisors will have a bona fide public hearing on April 25th, Monday, April 25th at or after 6 p.m. The meeting starts at 5:30, but the public hearings are at or after 6 p.m. So that's the next step in this particular project.
I'd just like to add one thing. Board of Supervisors can take exactly what we approved, run with it. They can change it. They can completely or change any part of it they want to, or they can look at it and go, you're crazy, or deny it and go on and not do it. So just so everybody knows that. So it can go either way. All right. Let's move forward. Nicholas and Bethany, Iacocca, 1492 Racine Road, Virginia, 24472, application for special exception permit to develop and operate a commercial kennel in agriculture and general uses A-2 zoning district.
Yes, and I do not have a pre-prepared bear with me here. I do not have a pre-prepared presentation for y'all on this one, but I do have a site map that I shared with the applicants and shared with the planning commission members this afternoon that I think we'll start as a reference point, as a talking point. So with that, bear with me here. All right. This is, of course, a continued public hearing for Nicholas and Bethany Iacocca. At the March 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, the commission opened the public hearing and continued the public hearing until the April 13th, tonight's meeting, 2022. The commission requested additional information on the location of the proposed boarding kennel and additional information on what types of breeds that would be associated with the operation. So with that being said, I have had an opportunity to review the site recently. And of course, I had sent y'all an email from Nicholas pertaining to the requested information. And so that email included a schematic site plan, if you will, of approximately where the proposed kennel area would be. And so what we have done, we staff of the community development have made this associated map that could be utilized in the conditions. So essentially, the proposed conditions for discussion purposes will be number one, the development of the property. And again, it's 27-A-23B, for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan entitled Development Plan for Iacocca Kennels, dated April 13th, 2022. Number two is going to have some discussion, based on the public hearing and based on the planning commission discussion. We have breeding limited to the following breeds, and that is left blank. Of course, in the email correspondence from the applicant, they have many types of breed that they're interested in pursuing. At number four, the boarding operation is limited to blank number of dogs. And then, I'm sorry, number three, boarding operation is limited to blank number of dogs. So that's not another item that the planning commission will have to fill in. Number four, limited to blank number of dogs for breeding purposes, including any visiting stud dogs in accordance with condition number two. And number five, all activities shall be within an enclosed structure with attached outdoor runs. Any runs off the dwelling shall be located behind the rear of the structure. So I have shared this with the applicant, and of course I reviewed these with the members of the planning commission. With that being said, I'd like to turn the floor over to the applicants to review additional details of the project. If you don't mind, I'll leave this particular screen up for discussion purposes, and we continue the conversation.
Good evening, gentlemen. Well, first, I would like to say one thing. I apologize for butchering your name.
Oh, that's all right.
Sorry.
It is
I've done it for
something that-
years.
that I'm very used to.
I think we'll all apologize.
So as Mr. Slayton has said that hopefully you have some more details pertaining to kind of our mindset around what we're hoping to do with this property. If there's more things that I can clarify, I'd be glad to try to make that more clear to you in any regard.
I think everybody's been wondering what kind of breeds of dogs you're going to have.
Yeah. So what we mentioned there was just in the email that was passed around, there is a list of breeds that are a possibility. So are those something that we would necessarily breed? No, but those are breeds of dogs that our children have interest in, we may have interest in, although me and my wife, we are pretty well strictly golden retriever people ourselves. But this property we purchased so that our children can move into something if they want to and continue doing what we do if they want to go towards a different breed of dog. And those are the types of dogs and the breeds of dogs that we feel would be something that we'd be interested as our family in possibly raising. Now, with that being said, does that mean that every last one of those breeds is going to be bred at the same time on this property as far as making a business out of it? And quite honestly, that's not feasible. You can't do that unless you're going to have one of each, and it just for a business and to be able to actually do a good job at raising good sound animals. We don't feel like that's feasible. So what we honestly see is that there's probably going to be at the max, probably 2 different breeds, out of what we have listed that will be possibly chosen at some point that would be used, but on that property. But other than that, we just gave that listing so that you kind of get an idea of the possibilities.
Do we want, is that something you want to mention for the general public here that have attended that may not have that email?
Certainly, I can reiterate that. So the breeds of dogs that is listed in the email that we're referencing is Labrador Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, Golden Retrievers, Settlers, Spaniels, Poodles, Collies, German Shepherd, Burmese Mountain Dogs, and then it goes on to say, and the small house dog breeds, also for herding and livestock guard dogs such as blue heelers, Australian cattle dogs, and shepherds and Great Pyrenees.
Thank you, Chris.
So, and it's an ever evolving process as always. Special exceptions are ever evolving. So number 2 certainly could be limited to, based on the conversation we're having now, breeding limited to 2 of the following breeds, I think would be permissible. And then I was concerned on overextending the type of dogs and not having as much input as usual on the type of dogs that we have, but you could limit it to these types of dogs. We would specify what types of dogs, and then limited the breeding limited to 2 of the following breeds.
Okay.
And I could reiterate those breeds. I would certainly suggest specifying the breeds and not necessarily having ambiguity such as small house dog breeds, that type of thing, because that does I'm uncertain of what those breeds would be.
I'm thinking we need to be picking and choosing, or you need to pick and choose where you're at and what you want to get into.
Yes.
With, of course, the ability to come back later on and go, hey, I
Sure.
want to come back in and we'd
Right.
like an amendment to the special exception for that.
Mhm. Yeah. Because our thoughts was, this is the things that our children are interested in. And so I didn't want to limit them in their choice of dogs. Just like I guess we could come back, just like with our other property with golden retrievers, we could come back and, do the same thing as what you're suggesting at a later time for that property as well, even though we plan never to do that. But that's kind of, I get what you're suggesting, that we can always come back. We can pick 2 now and then go from there. If that's the case, Labradors would be one because they're a lot like our golden retrievers. We feel very comfortable with labs. Would be definitely one of them. I would still ask that the herding dogs, as what is specified, would be allowed for the other breeds at this time, because my brother, like we'd mentioned before, we wanted him to come over with his family and work for our kennel as it expands. And he is interested in those herding dogs because he has sheep and we have a lot of other acreage, which he's going to be managing, hopefully. And so I don't want to tie something up with him. He already has, actually, he lives in Kentucky right now, and he has blue heelers and Australian cattle dogs, and he is interested in getting the Great Pyrenees. So that's something that would be something I would like to have as an option still for that property.
So the proposed condition could read, breeding limited to 2 of the following breeds: Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, blue heelers, Australian cattle dogs, and Great Pyrenees, excuse me. And then they would have the flexibility to choose 2 of those type of breeds that could be bred on the property.
Yes. And of course, we're looking at, we limited you on your other property to X number of dogs, breeding dogs.
Correct. Yes.
Not counting the puppies.
Correct.
And of course, with the ability to come back
Yes.
at a later date.
Correct.
And to me, it's with this being a completely separate facility, I think that would probably be a plus. What would be a number? And
Yes.
I'm sure you got some number in
We
your
do.
mind. So
Yes. So what I would ask for is for a total of 15 breeding dogs on this property. It's much like what was originally granted us on our other property. It's with the addition of 3 dogs. It was 12 dogs on our original property. And so we feel that if you would grant us 15 dogs, it would give us the same type of grounds basically to be able to have a trial run for the next 2 years, 3 years, just like what we had on our other property. See what the public says, see what goes on, and then we can come back and if we feel the need to increase that. Right now, I don't, at this time, I sure don't see a reason why I would need to ask at this point for any more than that. So that's what we feel like. It's kind of like a trial run, just like our other property was a trial run, and then you extended it. We kind of feel like it's the same.
boarding operation.
Yes. So boarding operations, really the details surrounding the boarding operation, and the reason why we're asking for that is because at our current location, we cannot board anything. So we have been asked numerous times for our golden retriever business, so say somebody's going on vacation and they ask if we can board their puppy that we raised in our kennel as they go away. And we say, no, we can't, because we cannot board, even though it's a dog that we raised on our property and from our dogs. We also, we've talked about stud before, which it was clarified that that's not an issue, really, to actually have a stud dog there for the crossbreeding of our dogs. And that was something that we had thought was an issue, where we couldn't actually keep a stud dog because we're not paying, or we are not receiving payment. However, on the flip side of that, there's a lot of people who have asked us about bringing their female dogs to us. And that obviously would be something where we are incurring a fee from the person bringing the dog, and we can't do that right now. So with that idea of having the kennel available to have dogs over at the other one, well, then we could actually bring in dogs that we are crossbreeding out to other bloodlines from people that we know in this state and abroad, to be able to do that. But right now we can't. And honestly, I don't know of another kennel that can't do that.
Okay.
So, what? Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was moving on to another part of this. Just.
Yep.
Go ahead.
What is your number of dogs you like to board at one time?
Well, boarding the dogs would only really go off of the number of really being asked. We really wouldn't advertise this to the public. And like I said, it would really be just dogs that we had raised there prior, that we had, history with a little bit. And the people that we had history with, it's not really that we're interested in boarding just somebody like in Augusta County. They bring their, blue, whatever, spotted, whatever, to be able to be a part of our boarding. We're not really interested to do that. The real reason to get that ability is just so that we can legally do some things in-house, more or less.
So we're going to look to put a number on that. So what?
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm saying 5. Yeah, 5. I don't see any reason why we'd have any more than 5. Yeah.
And so condition number 5 that we've got here in front of us All activities shall be within an enclosed structure with attached outdoor runs. Any runs off the dwelling shall be located behind the rear of the structure.
Correct.
And so you're okay with that condition?
I am, the definition of enclosure, okay, was something that I brought up. The definition, because over at our other property, we have our dogs inside of a structure with a roof on top of it. All right, but these are pens that you buy that are designed specifically for kennels. They're a welded wire kennel that you can pick up off of any of these sites that are for dog breeding and that kind of stuff. And so we're allowed to have those over at that property. The dogs are inside, but they also have they are under a roof. But then they can go outside, obviously, and you can see the dog right through it. So it depends. Is this talking about a structure that it has 4 walls that you cannot see through at all, and then has an outdoor run that the dog can go out to? To me, if the dog can still go outside anytime it wants, there's really no difference other than visually. And if you've seen the property, you kind of know that people really can't go by and just look at it, where its location is, very private spot. So it's right on that corner. And in all honesty, if you crane your neck there, you're going to get into some issues on that corner. So it's back there tucked away. So I can understand, look, if we put up a privacy fence right across that front, across the front face of where the road side, well, then you could make it so that you can't see them at all back there. So I guess there's my definition of what does it mean structure wise when I'm thinking about what we have been allowed to do over at our other property comparing to this property. What would be the difference and what would be the reasoning behind it?
I would assume it's noise, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong.
And that's-
Barking and, the visual aspect is probably a minor component of it, but,
And that was my, Nicholas and I had a good conversation about an hour ago when I sent this out to everyone. And so the definition had brought up a good discussion. The definition, and while I was checking on my phone, I wasn't checking text message. I was looking up the definitions, which I did earlier. So enclosed is something closed in or fenced off. So that's important to have that definition. A structure is something that is constructed. So I think, and Nicholas and I had the conversation. I think the intent of the commission members that I was able to talk to was that it was an enclosed. I think a better word would be enclosed building. A building is something that usually a usually roofed and walled structure. So it is. I'm on Webster's more nowadays than I was in school, if you will. And so that is a very imperative conversation we're having now.
Yes,
Noise would be the concern I'd be looking at.
sure. Yes.
You watch the news, you watch and see what goes on. There's a lot of, there's some dog, puppy, where they're raising pups and,
Yes.
and also, boarding animals, and the boarding animals worry me is probably a little more than what you got around there that you're raising as far as noise goes, because
Sure.
they're not used to each other.
Yes.
What would you consider, what are we considering the back of this block for a building? I mean, is the back towards the back of the property, or is the back going to be in the front, going to be the front towards the house and then the back towards the creek or
Right.
the line?
Well, my thought of back behind it would be the facing towards the road. So there is the wall, so to speak, or the structure has to be on that side and everything behind that. You go the other way around and then you put the pens that way, then all that, the dogs are going to be out front of that. And
If you're looking at the map now, it'd be going down was what I was looking at. So
Okay.
you're looking at going the lengthways of the building, the back of the building would be the right-hand side of the building, the way it's oriented on the map right now. Correct?
I'm sorry.
The back of the building would be oriented to the right-hand side, the way that's set right now.
Okay. Oh, the whole building. So this is kennel area. That also includes the runs. Okay, the run and this is outdoor runs because we don't believe our dogs should be kept 100% inside of a structure. for all the years we've done it, we are very sure that dogs do much better having a lot of fresh air to be able to get out. Of course, they need to be inside, but they need to be outside. So that is not that proposed area is not a building size, which you understand that, but I would, if we ever did a building, the building itself would be towards the front, which I mean towards the road of that blocked off area. So that behind that, between that and the pond, there's that little pond there, would be the run.
Right, inside, yeah.
So just to reiterate, condition number 5, it says all activities shall be within enclosed, the current draft says all activities shall be within an enclosed structure. And of course, the key word there is structure versus building. Currently says structure with attached outdoor runs. Any runs off of the dwelling shall be located behind the rear line of the structure. So the way I'm interpreting that is this would include the kennel area, including enclosed structure or enclosed building here, and that could be modified. But as far as the rear line of the building, that would be here, and that works out well with the site visit we did. As far as the being able to, they're going to utilize the basement, similar as the existing operation. They're going to utilize the basement of the existing house for breeding purposes and for
For the puppies.
itself.
Yeah. So when the puppies are born, they will be born inside the house in the basement, just like it is at our other house. Yes.
That part's behind the house, away from the road. Any noise you got there would be behind the property. The yellow area
Yes.
will have a structure building, define the structure again versus building.
Structure is something that is constructed. A building is a usually roofed and walled structure. So I think that obviously the intent of it, if it is the will of the planning commission to make the recommendation that it is enclosed building, we should utilize the word building. And that would be enclosed and walled. Roofed and walled, I should say.
Towards the roadside.
I'd just like to make a mention about the, it says something about a pen as well, a fenced area, I believe.
It says all activities shall be within enclosed structure with attached outdoor runs.
Yes. So that's the point I want to make. So if we have an enclosed structure and then we have attached outdoors runs where the dog is freely to go outside, then the noise issue could be obviously mitigated if the dog stayed inside and barked. But as soon as he decides or she decides to walk outside, which we have found that dogs enjoy doing the most, then they are not inside the structure anymore and they can bark outside. But at the same time, we don't want to be able to keep those dogs inside all the time without them being allowed to go outside.
I get that. I really don't know how to.
Well, we can get to that.
Huh?
We can get to that in a minute.
Okay.
All right. You got anything else, Tim?
One more thing, I hope that this would help. The breeds that we are raising or hoping to raise are not the most barky breeds. They are not hunting dogs in the sense that they are baying dogs. So, do you understand the noise and stuff?
We certainly do. And like I say, it's something we want to make sure we take care of on the front end and not the back end.
Yes.
A whole lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you.
Unless you've got something else, you got anything?
No,
else?
sir.
Thank you
And this
so
is a
much.
continued public
It
hearing.
is continued public hearing. So at this time, we're going to open the public hearing. If there's anybody here physically present who would like to speak.
No one has signed up, but we'll recognize you now. Not seeing anyone. I will go to the Zoom. I'm actually going to stop sharing. If you are in attendance and you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand now. Use the raise your hand button. We do have one phone call from 261-3985, and I'll allow you to talk. I think is the only way I can do that. You don't have the ability to raise your hand, but if you would like to make the comment, you have the floor. All right, not seeing any. We do have two questions. It says a poodle is listed. This would be a standard poodle or miniature or toy poodles. And so we've gotten past that one with the list of breeds. What is the purpose of the kennel? To breed and not board? And so that's covered in the definition. So we'll go from there. Not seeing any hands raised. I will turn the floor back over to the chair.
No further comments, then public hearings closed. And back up front to us. Numbers, numbered board and dogs, I certainly don't have an issue with 5. That's very minimal compared to what it could be. Limited into certain breeds, I feel like that's a must right now. What about the 12 dogs for breeding purposes? Or 15?
15 was
Yeah, 15. I know with your other kennel, we limited you a little bit on it, and then you come back, which with good no negative comments from anybody in the community. Everything's been positive from what I understand, Chris. I don't think we've got any issues.
We have not. No, sir.
So I know this is going to be a different beast, I guess the best way to call it. So we'll end up doing the same thing with you on this, and see how it goes, and then we can always turn it up, because as we told you before, this does follow the property. So whatever we do now, it goes with it. If you get tired later on, decide you're going to sell it, somebody else can come in and turn it into something that could be a problem. So.
So is that 15 number, is that hard and fast, or was that shooting for the stars? And I just have that question for you.
So the 15 number right now, we don't see that as something that we need to exceed with our other business. Our other business is a full-time business for us. This would be a full-time business for us as well. And we want to do a very good job and continue our image up, not only just to our neighbors, but also to all the people who come and purchase our dogs. And so we feel very comfortable with 15 right now. It would be, I'm not going to say, that I would never want to increase that, but I'm just going to say right now, we feel very, very comfortable with that number. Yeah.
Okay.
And then to re-clarify about the dog breeds, if we could have those dog breeds available, but only 2 being bred on that property at a time.
And that's based on the discussion we had earlier. I have a draft motion number 2, draft condition number 2, breeding limited to 2 of the following breeds. And the breeds that we had listed previously are Labrador retrievers, golden retrievers, blue heelers, Australian cattle dogs, and Great Pyrenees.
There's one thing that I would ask though to be added in there, and that'd be poodles, because of the reason that a lot of people like the doodles, which is a crossbreed out. So you'd have to have a male or a female to be able to make a cross, a Labrador doodle or a golden doodle, and you need a poodle male to do that. So the poodle is necessary for that because it makes it hypoallergic, so that people with allergies can have a dog.
So based on the question, and I know we're getting down to the nuts and bolts here, and that's a good thing, because if we don't do it now, it'll be done later. Now's the appropriate time. So with that, what type of poodles are crossbred to make the?
Both small ones and the regular standard. So if they cross out a small poodle, you'll get yourself a miniature doodle is what happens. And then the same, whether it's golden doodle, and it's all the rage for certain people, but this is whether if they want to keep them inside or if they have the outdoor facilities and the size of the dogs they have. So it is a part of what we do.
Understood. Appreciate your expertise.
Thank you. Thank you. We'd be lost.
Oh.
It's growing.
It is growing. Are we satisfied with the number 5 and the use, changing to building instead of structure?
So this number 5 would be very similar to what you're doing on your other property, essentially.
With the
Uh,
word structure,
with the
I
word
would
structure.
concur with the word structure. It would be if y'all would, if the will of the commission is to an enclosed structure. I think that based on the definitions that we have in front of us, yes, that his existing operation would be considered enclosed structure because again, enclosed is enclosed in or fenced off. Structure is something that is constructed. And so if y'all would prefer that to specify building, now would be the appropriate time. And again, building is a usually roofed and walled structure. And I think based on the intent and based on the intent of the conversation, we obviously could just strike the word usually, based on the definition, I should say.
Well, the one thing that I look at with a building, if you have some problem borders that are making a lot of noise, you can shut them inside the building and keep them from getting outside. That's why I like a building. Now, granted, that's not what you want to do. It's not what I want to do. But it with the pub, when you got other people that you could interrupt their lives that aren't on the property or are part of your family, then definitely we have to be able to at least do that. So
Yes, I agree with your assertion. This property does have 2 enclosed buildings right now that could be turned into something like that for a problem dog. So there are 2 buildings already constructed that could work.
all right, thank you. To me, we do an enclosed building, and the building's towards the road, but the run's behind it, going up the hollow there. We've both seen the property.
Right.
I think everybody has. Which would push them away from the road. Is everybody happy with the 15 breeding dog?
I think I am. Yes.
Okay.
And I would just like to add, based on that last comment from Nicholas, that has 2 existing enclosed structures, I would like the opportunity to be able to modify the development plan for the kennel dated April 13th to include what y'all have seen here, but also add those 2 additional enclosed structures. That could be the existing enclosed structures that could be utilized.
But, they were wood frame buildings, if I'm correct. Both of them were on the upper side of the property, be the north side of the property.
I remember the
Directly behind the house,
Right.
there's one sitting there, and there's one closer to the road, it would be to the west of the proposed area.
and that's the log cabin structure.
That's not, no, it's actually, that one, there is a log cabin structure as well. We would use that for
Okay.
dogs. It's the other, building that is actually on the other side of the little creek.
Pull them out.
Yep, no, I recall
Pay a
that.
little
I
more
will-
attention to that.
So the 2, and I'm good on which ones they are. Share screen. Oops. All right, so the first one we're referring to, the enclosed structure is located here, is the first enclosed structure. And then the second one, Nicholas, is,
No,
but that's the,
back this way to the west.
oh, that's right, that right here. That's located behind the house. So the two wooden structures located here, and then log cabin I was referring to, I think is this one.
Yeah, that's the log cabin up there. If we're gonna modify it, those would be for indoor use only with no.
Within the
no-
enclosed structures,
Within the
yes.
enclosed structure. with no-
Enclosed building, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yes.
building with no runs on those 2. We hope you don't have that. We all know how it works. All right,
I think I would be good with that.
I'm
What,
good with
what do you,
I'm good with that.
so we're gonna leave this as structure.
No, we're gonna do a building,
We are,
closed building with runs.
so why are, if we're really gonna do an enclosed building with runs, do we really need to include those other structures or?
Well, I mean, that's a bonus for him if he's got if
Okay.
he has some problem dogs.
Okay.
Tries to throw 2 or 3 of them together in a spot and they want to fight or something, he's got a spot to separate.
I may make one more just comment on this. So the boarding issue is separate from the breeding issue. Like what we have at our other place, we don't have any enclosed buildings that our dogs are actually kept in. Now, can we decipher that the buildings are for the problem dogs? Because our own personal dogs that we plan on having are not going to be the barky type, just like what we have at our other property. Our other property is very quiet. And so the same kind of thing is for, that's our intent, is to have dogs that are not loud dogs. So I understand completely about the boarding dogs because they are unused to the property. They may be used to whatever circumstances they are and seeing new dogs, but the dogs that we actually have, those 15 dogs that we have actually for the breeding dogs, do they then have to be also kept inside of a building, or can they be kept as we have at our other house inside of the kennel square?
We're sitting here and we're looking at this area you've got blocked off.
Yes.
And there's not any definition, there's not a plan, there's not a site plan, there's not a building design there. So we're sitting here on the fly trying to figure out what you've got in your mind. But what we've got to do is be able to put it on paper and make it something that we can either approve and send to the board or not tonight.
Yes.
So what part of that building that you're talking about or yellow block
Yes.
is going to be for boarding and what part of that's going to be for your breeding dogs?
Right. Well, so if we have 15 breeding dogs, that'll take up basically 3/4 of that space. And then the additional 5 would have pens available for the boarding dogs. However, when I say 5 dogs for boarding, I really feel that that would be the max we would ever have, because in the event, and how many people ask us, I think that we would have 2 to 3 times a year there. This is not a continuous thing. I 100% do not believe that we'd have 5 dogs there continuously throughout the year, even as it's set right now. I believe that we would have 2 to 3 dogs there, maybe 2 to 3 times a year. And that's what it is. So I totally understand the concern about having problematic dogs inside of a structure. We have the structures available, but I'm just hoping that we can do the same breeding practices as far as the same pens that we have at our other property to be able to be utilized on this property for our breeding dogs. And the dogs that are not problematic that we may be boarding. I understand what you're saying, the details.
We're saying the devil's in the details.
Yes.
So that's where we're at right now. So. Hey, thank you.
We're still sticking with building.
I'm sticking with building. So yeah.
And
Building
David, about that. Okay.
Unless he would want to kick this can down the road till next month and bring us back a plan of some kind, and I don't know whether he can or not, if we can or not. That's
We would have to do an extension by agreement. The planning commission has 60 days to act on the application. And generally speaking, that's from the first meeting. And so with that being said, we'd have to look at the calendar, but I could review the conditions that we have, that we've discussed, if that's beneficial.
You want to review those, and I mean, we can, I mean, I know it's, it may be a little different, but if he's not happy with the building, he's going to bring back something in a plan to me to make me happy or make us happy, I think, other than.
I'm with you. And unlike, I will state, unlike proffers associated with rezonings, the conditions do not have to be voluntary and they don't have to be agreed upon. And with that being said, they do have to be sound and reasonable and associated with the use of the land.
I understand that, but it's trying to, I guess, work with the applicant. That would be something that I certainly wouldn't have a problem letting him come back with, or I don't think any of us would, instead of denying it and going back down and letting him come back with it with another application, which would be kind of crazy.
So
My mind.
Nicholas, last time you maybe come up, if you would like to come up one more time, would you, essentially what the question is would you like for the planning commission to act on the application as discussed now, or would you like to essentially request a postponement by agreement?
Okay.
And a postponement by agreement will allow us to, we've closed the public hearing, correct? Yes, we've closed the public hearing. So a request by a extension by agreement would supersede the section of county code that requires the planning commission to act on 60 days. So essentially what we would be doing is coming back to this venue with the planning commission
More details.
with more details
More
in
details.
May.
In May. I would like you guys to understand, perfectly what it is. I mean, I understand it from my side. I would like to personally show you. I mean, it may not be something that you are able to come out or anything like that, but I'd be willing to meet with you guys and say, this is what it is, show you also our other breeding operation. Then you can guys get a full context of what we're thinking of. Me, in my mind, I think I understand what you are thinking. Okay. But that's not saying that I do. I believe that if we had the liberty to have the breeding operation, so this is what I would say for wording, the breeding operation, as far as the breeding goes, exactly like we have at our other property, the 1392 home or 1372 home, I mean, and then the boarding side of it, I don't mind having the boarding side of it being kept inside buildings for problematic dogs that bark. If they are not problematic, they can stay outside. But that is, to me, it's clear and cut, very easy for me to understand. If they're quiet and if they're easygoing dogs, they can stay outside, as we have at the other property. However, if they are problematic dogs, they need to be inside. Is that?
The problem I've got is we can't define problematic, and Chris can't come back and say that's a problematic dog.
I guess it would be the way that we problematic would be is you got people that say that they are listening to a dog that they don't enjoy listening to. I mean, that would be where the problematic would start. It'd be, that is a problem,
Well, and certainly I hope that you would recognize that before it ever became a problem.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I'm saying, or I would hope that you would trust me in that way, that I would be able to recognize that problematic dog and put it in. But I understand what you have to write down.
The problem's not trusting you. It's the problem is it follows the property.
Yeah, I understand.
The problem that we got.
Yes.
So, you, like I've said to many people in here, you may be the greatest person in the world.
Yeah.
You're going to do everything the way you say you're going to do it. 10 years down the road, you get bored and you go someplace else. Somebody else is going to be running the dog breeding operation there.
Yes.
It goes with the property.
Yes.
Or could potentially run
Yes.
a dog breeding property.
Yes.
So that's why we've got to get it down now.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the question is, do you want to, we can vote on this thing tonight, and I think everybody, from what I'm hearing, is in agreement for a building. But you're not.
So if it's going to be for a building for everything, which means the breeding as well, which is the dogs we would own, then I would ask for not, because the breeding, I directly look at that of what we do at the other property, and we do not have those enclosed in a
building and we don't need to have them enclosed because they are very quiet, docile dogs. And that is our intention for this one. And so if that is the case where you want all dogs inside of a building, then I would respectfully ask that we go on to so I can show you, give more details on it. But if you're like, look, if you board a dog, if you're boarding a dog and you have to keep it inside of a building, I'd be fine with that. But as long as the breeding dogs were allowed to be outside.
I think we need a little detail on the yellow block.
Sure.
I think that's where I'm at.
Yes.
I want to see some detail on that.
Yep.
Where you gonna lay it out, how you gonna lay it out,
Yeah.
what you want to do, where you gonna have your boarding dogs at, where you're not.
Right.
And that'll limit some potential, possibly limit potential issues down the road.
Yes.
And I think that's where we need to be.
Yeah.
And with that new information, that we may not create a deal breaker for you, because right now we would be requiring a building, I believe.
Sure.
I can speak for myself, but I think most of us would be more glad to come out and at least see what you got going on.
Yes, I'll be glad to show you. Absolutely.
I mean, I've been there,
Yeah.
not stand there with you
Exactly.
explaining.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, what we need to do.
We need to make a motion to postpone taking action until the next month's meeting. Correct? And then I will get with the applicant to get the written agreement to request an extension, which is not uncommon, as you know.
I will make that motion to postpone till the next meeting, taking action until the next meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Thank y'all.
Thank you. All right. Going on to number 7 here, which is, sure I got this right. Troy Plot, CVE North America, Inc., 117 Mackey's Lane, Fairfield, Virginia, application for special exception permit to develop and operate a 4.50 megawatt AC solar project in the agricultural and general use A-2 zoning district.
And I have a very brief PowerPoint presentation before I turn it over to the applicant and his team. This is a special exception on gentleman's, the landowner's name is Troy Plot. The applicant is CVE North America Incorporated. And this is an application for a special exception permit to develop a 4.05 megawatt AC power solar project considered a public utility in the agricultural and general use districts. A little bit of the property details itself. The plot track is outlined in magenta and is identified as tax map number 51-A-24 and consists of 95.81 acres per tax records. The proposed solar project will encompass approximately 26 acres of the tract. The property is located in and surrounded by the agricultural and general use district. That's the A2 zoning district as shown on white on this particular map. Going to the details of the project itself of the application, Mr. Carson Wayand, and I probably butchered that, I apologize, with CEV is in attendance tonight and has made an application for, again, a 4.05 megawatt AC solar project along the north side of Mackey's Lane. Again, the property is owned by Troy Plot, located in A2 zoning district. Per section 603.03-9 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, public utilities are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. The proposed solar site will encompass, again, 26 acres of the tract. There's an existing single-family dwelling and existing farming operation on the tract of land. The portion that is proposed for the solar project has been utilized as a crop field. With that, I'd like to turn over the presentation to Mr. Carson with North America, CVE's North America, to introduce his team and review the details of the project. And I do have your PowerPoint presentation to pull up. Let me see here. Bear with me here. I'm not as familiar with where's the full screen?
That's definitely
Full
not it.
screen. New share, stop share, and then new. Well, it's on here. It's on here. With that being said, I'm just trying to figure out how to get,
Right, in the maybe view.
yeah, that's what I had. Potentially read mode.
There you go.
Yes, that is it.
Thank you.
Bear with me here. I'll get my- So, thanks.
So great. Good to see everybody tonight. Nice to meet the board, the commission. My name is Carson Wynand, Senior Business Developer with CVE. Here to introduce you to the Mackey's Lane Shared Solar Project. I have my team with me as well. The team behind this project includes Christina and Naseem. They're engineers at CVE. And then our outside consultants, Matt and Daniel. Matt's our legal counsel and Daniel's our civil engineer. So I'll keep this presentation as brief as possible. I'll keep it moving. I'd like to introduce you quickly to CVE, introduce you to the project, do a recap of the information session we had on March 16th, review the concerns that we heard, review the responses that we're giving, and then move on to a few additional benefits of the site. So CVE is an independent power producer. That just means we're an energy developer that owns and operates the assets long-term. We don't flip these projects. We invest in them for the life of the project, 25 to 35 years. We're an over 200-person company that's been in business for 12 years. Our headquarters is in Marseille, France, and we have an office in New York City of about 25 people and growing. We have over 100 operating projects that total over 450 megawatts currently in operation. Here's a snapshot of our projects that are in operation, under construction, and in development in North America. We started in Massachusetts, then we moved to New York. And then as new states developed community solar programs, we started developing sites in those states. For example, Virginia, as of a year and a half ago, passed this shared solar program. So we've been originating sites and developing them. The Mackey's Lane Shared Solar Project, it's a 5.2 megawatt site, 4.05 megawatts AC. That's the size that gets interconnected with Dominion. It's located at 117 Mackey's Lane. The total parcel acreage is 95 acres. We're using just over 25 acres. We executed an option for lease with Mr. Reese in November of 2021. It's a shared solar program, so about 900 local homes will be able to benefit from this project. I'll go into that in more detail on what exactly that means at a later slide. Point of interconnection is being brought to our access road just north of Mackey's Lane. So there's an existing single phase line that we are extending 0.1 miles to get to our site. The site zoned A2, and this is a permitted use by way of special use permit. Minimum setbacks 50 feet all around. The max module height will be 9 feet. So these are trackers. They move with the sun. They face east in the morning, west in the afternoon. I know our site plans say 15 feet, but in reality, it's 9 feet. And then we will have a 20-foot screening buffer landscaped around the perimeter, around the fence of the facility. This is a snapshot of the site plan itself. Mackey's Lane over here, coming south from Route 11. This is the 25 acres that will be fenced in. Subdivision over to the east, the Clementi property here, and the Harmon property here. This is our gravel access road. About 9,500 panels will be installed, spaced about 14 feet apart. This is a close-up of the landscaping buffer. So the eastern and southern perimeter where there's the most visual impacts, will have the buffer on the left, a more dense buffer, tighter together with foliage that grows more densely as well, hopefully to screen it better. And then the buffer on the right will be on the northern and the western portions of the property. Some of these trees, in our plans, we have a breakdown of the species of these trees and the maximum heights that they'll grow to. Some of these trees grow to 40 to 60 feet, others grow to 60 to 80 feet, and then they're filled in with shrubs and other smaller plantings. Obviously, they won't be that high at planting. They'll be 6 to 10 feet, but over the next 10 to 15 years, they will grow to look like that. This is a close-up of the interconnection situation at this property. So CVE will extend the single phase from Route 11 down Mackey's Lane to the Joseph Harmon property where it ends. So there's existing poles with a single wire that goes directly into the Harmon property. That's highlighted here in yellow. And then we'll be extending with new poles and new wire down Mackey's Lane to get to our point of interconnection, which will be just on the corner of our property. This section is about 0.1 miles. We expect to install 2 new poles. We haven't gotten the specifics yet from Dominion, but that's what we expect, just given the distance. And then on our property for specific utility equipment, we will install 6 above ground poles along our access road, and those are circled in red there. We are first in the interconnection queue at the Rockbridge substation. So our interconnection studies in process with Dominion. That substation is located to the south in East Lexington. It's 7.7 miles away from the site. So the March 16th neighborhood info session that we held over Zoom was a success. We introduced the project to the nearby community. We had about 15, 20 attendees. Some of the concerns that came up were obviously visual impacts, first and foremost, the inability to participate in the shared solar credits because many of the neighbors are in the Bark Electric Cooperative, environmental impacts of the equipment, decommissioning concerns, what happens to the site at the end of its useful life or if CVE disappears, and then stormwater management. How are we protecting against water flowing onto Mackey's Lane? And our responses are there on the right. And I have follow-up slides to get into these in more detail, but the biggest response, biggest revision that we've made since the March 16th session was we drafted an alternative project layout, which significantly reduces the visual impact. Previously, we had 3 rows of panels. Now we only have 2 rows of panels. At the lowest point of the site, on the easternmost portion of the site, we're taking it off the big hill that is on the west. We're lowering the height of the facility by about 100 feet. We're also open to discussing ways the Bark cooperative customers can participate in substitute credit savings. Open to ideas on how they could participate some way in this facility. We're using modules with very limited potential for contamination. I have a breakdown of that. What materials go into these modules. CVE will record a decommissioning surety agreement with the county to make sure there are funds available in the case that CVE is not around. And then CVE will be forced to, from a state level now, from the Virginia DEQ, there's new state stormwater regulations that we are installing and adhering to on site now. And I'll show you that in a couple of slides, what we're proposing to install. So here's a close-up of before and after of our original layout and the revised layout. So we're obviously reducing the elevation. Like I said, from a peak of about 1,700 feet to 1,600 feet, we reduced the project area from 31 acres to 25 acres and overall reduce the visual impact. I will say it doesn't make much of a difference for the property to the south, but for the properties to the east, we think we almost nearly eliminated the visual impacts, especially considering the existing vegetation that is there at the property line. When you consider the elevation of the properties to the east, we're almost at par. And then considering the 20-foot dense landscaping buffer that we will install. So here's the existing, this is the best photo we had. We can supplement with additional visual simulations, but this is the best we could do for tonight. This is looking east to west on the Clementi Park property, you know, almost in the middle of the site. As you can see the arrow there. There are no homes in this area. This is just existing. This is the previous layout. Obviously, you can see the panels on that raised slope. This is our new proposed layout. This is what it would look like when we first constructed. There's no vegetation growth. The landscaping hasn't grown in yet. We think, given the elevation, given the existing vegetation, there would be limited visual impacts from the east. And then this is at maturity, when you have 60, 80-foot trees grown in, potentially no visual impacts. This is a breakdown of the utility territories. So in pink is Dominion. The shared solar program that we are participating in only applies to Dominion. In the teal is the Bark Electric Cooperative. Our project site is where that blue pin is. And we're right on the border, and that's why, unfortunately, many of the neighbors cannot participate. You know, that said, in recognition of the spirit of the shared solar program, we welcome the opportunity to discuss alternatives to offer substitute credit savings to these neighbors that would be comparable to those received by the subscribers in Dominion. Subscribers are expected to save an average of $3,700 over the 25-year term of the program of their monthly utility savings. Also worth noting is that there has been a project or two in Rockbridge County within Bark Electric Cooperative, and these neighbors have the opportunity to participate in shared solar through that project. Unfortunately, not through this project. This is the module composition. So this is the composition for all tier 1 solar panels, all investment grade solar panels. There's no hazardous materials with the exception of lead. Less than 0.1% of the module is comprised of lead. And we think there's a very limited potential for exposure because it is encased within the module glass. The only way the ground could get in contact with this lead is if a module breaks, but we would obviously remove and replace that module, remove it from the site. Decommissioning. So we submitted a decommissioning plan to Chris, to the county. Our decommissioning efforts include removing panels, pulling the racking, pulling the posts, pulling the fencing, removing the concrete pads for the transformers, disassembling the wiring, the conduits, the inverters, excavating the access road, digging it up, and then restoring the land, restoring the soils, decompacting the soils. There are any posts that have been filled with concrete, excavating those, filling those with soils, and reseeding generally. So, you know, we are offering to place a bond or even a cash agreement in place with the county, recording it, valued at approximately $150,000 to $175,000. This is something we do at all our sites. And if the facility stops operating, or if CVE disappears, or if we are just at the end of our lease, this is something the county could act on. Stormwater management. So as of March 29th, 2022, effective immediately, Virginia DEQ changed the regulations. Solar panels are to be considered impervious, and we will be required to install stormwater management. We will install an extended detention pond at the lowest point of the site, about 100 feet wide, shown there right at the southeast corner. And that is the flattest, lowest point of the site to catch all the water running off to Mackey's Lane. We also just want to make a point that we're open to discussing conditions with regards to our special exception. We want this to be an open dialogue. Maybe there are some conditions with regards to the module specifications, to the composition of the modules, a commitment to securing only local subscribers within Rockbridge County, maybe limited construction hours, and then also a contribution for public improvement, also known as a revenue share. This is a revenue agreement directly with the county based on a rate per megawatt. I have another slide on it. But additional funds in addition to the land property tax that could go directly to the county. That could be a condition, a requirement of the special exception. So some of the project benefits, obviously, this is why it got passed in the first place at a state level. The environmental benefits are significant. The amount of clean energy that would be placed on the grid, displacing brown energy, is equivalent to avoiding over 13 million pounds of carbon dioxide per year. And that's the equivalent of planting 282,000 trees. So very powerful environmental impacts. This is a slide on shared solar and how it functions. A lot of words here. I'll try to keep it brief. Basically, we generate renewable energy back into Dominion. Dominion gives us credits. They give us monetary credits for all the energy that we generate. We can then allocate those credits directly to specific Dominion utility accounts where they show up as a deduction. So if somebody has a $100 bill, we can allocate them $100 worth of credits, and then they in turn have a separate bill with CBE and they pay us $90 for those credits. So they just turn their $100 bill into a $90 bill and we got $90 of revenue. And this type of program is available in 22 different states throughout the country. So approximately about 900 utility accounts will be able to participate within the Dominion territory for this project. There's a requirement from the state level that 30% of our customers have to be low to moderate income. We will offer them a 10% discount on the credits that we allocate to them. If you tally all the savings across all customers, across all months of the 25 years, it totals about 2.8 million in energy savings for the community. This is a slide on the local revenue benefits. The biggest, most significant local revenue benefit, like I mentioned before, is the revenue share agreement. This is something that we are open, willing to execute and discuss with the county. It's a pretty straightforward agreement. An additional stream of revenue for the county, starting at $1,400 per megawatt AC per year for the 25 years of the community solar program with a 2% escalator. That's $180,000 of revenue to the county. Additionally, well, before I go to point two, that $1,400 number was pulled from revenue share agreements that needed to be in place with utility scale projects, a different type of project in Virginia. And we're open to discussing that number if there's potentially some room for negotiation. Also, additional revenue is increased property tax on the land. So the use of the land will be moving from ag to commercial. And depending on how the county assessor assesses the property, there'll be more taxes due. All of this tax revenue is accretive. I think that's worth noting. You know, there's no strain on town services. There's no additional traffic. There's no additional children in the school district. No need for sewer and water. No need for police services. Yes, it's a very, very good way to increase the county's tax base. CVE is part of our corporate green initiative. We will donate $1 for every panel installed. So we'll be making a $9,500 donation to a local environmental agency. We do this on every project. For example, at a project in Massachusetts, we donated $11,500 to the Acushnet Sawmill, where they did ecosystem restoration, construction of a community garden, things like that. And we can do the same here. Maybe there's a organization, charity that the board has in mind, the commission has in mind, and we can work that into the conditions of the special exception where this money could go. And that's it. These are just some of our operating assets projects in in Massachusetts. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You got any questions you want to of him? I've got
Go ahead.
I've got a couple things that, you're talking about running a single wire down from, you can step back up. Yeah. We're gonna, I might have a couple questions. We all are. On the power line coming down Mackey's Lane.
Yeah.
Is that going to be a three-phase power line or a single phase?
Three-phase.
Okay, so you're gonna go in and replace all the poles. You're gonna take one line down, end up putting 3 up, 4 up, and extend that from 11 all the way down to the project.
Leave the poles and make them a
Awesome.
T. And then they'll have 3 lines on a single pole.
I'm very familiar there. I kind of got a feeling that poles will get replaced because they're probably not gonna be tall enough for 3-phase. Might be wrong, but that's my guess. When you get Dominion involved in it, that's where you're gonna be at.
Yeah, okay.
And I could be wrong. But you answered one of the questions which I had was materials in the panels.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something that we got to look at as far as disposal of. And if a panel gets busted, then they take it out and replace it because of course it's not generating any current. It's not making all money. Where's it going to get disposed of?
Landfill.
Our landfill.
I don't have a good answer for that right now.
Okay.
So there are potentially recycling options, but we don't have any identified, and they're more expensive. And right now the default is landfill.
I know you only got one visual simulation, which is from the Clements property. Let's get that right. I butchered names, so I want to make sure we get that right.
Clements?
Clements.
I'm sorry.
Clements. So I want to make sure we got that one right.
Clement.
So I'm worst. Yeah, I'm bad at butchering up names. So anyway, I just want to make sure we got that one right.
Yeah.
But I think Chris has got some areas that and some photos that you can use to bring some more visual simulations in here from over on we went around Saturday in a couple different areas around, one at the subdivision and
Yeah.
one that's across Mackey's Lane to the south.
I think we took 6 total, if I recall, or I have 6 total.
One
that
from
could be
down
utilized.
on Borden Grant shooting up the hollow. There's several that he's got that definitely we need to look at. And it's something that we're gonna need to see and it, as is the public, because I got a pretty good idea what it's gonna look like, but some of the other folks may not, and it's definitely something that you need to see. The more visual simulations.
Sure.
I kind of think you need to back up and look at your stormwater management because I got a funny feeling that you don't have enough ponds there.
Yeah.
Lay of that land, there's a couple different, you're gonna end up with 2 ponds on that front side and probably one on the back side to cover it. Now, I could be wrong. But I think, well, no, I'm not gonna be wrong. I know it's gonna be at least 2, more likely 3.
Yep.
So to cover that. So those are the things that I see that I've got some questions and some issues with and some things that need to be tended to, I guess is the best I can say for me now. Okay. Mr. Hoffman.
Stormwater management, that's been my big concern for the entirety of what I've read. The right-of-way issue, poles, that's already obtained, that's already there from Dominion, so that there won't be any change there. You're just making a change to the infrastructure, making it 3-phase instead of single phase, right? Okay. So when this lease is up, you can educate me a little bit, but when this lease is up and if this is is this something that could be continued or you could enter into another lease, or is this something that you typically walk away from, or just how does that really work what have you saw
Sure.
in your other operations?
Yeah, the lease term is designed to match the useful life of the facility.
Right.
So we have up to 35 years. We get community solar credits for 25 years from the state, from Dominion. And then after that, we plan to sell into the wholesale market at a much lower rate of the energy. After year 35, the facility will be shot and we'll remove it and do a whole nother economic analysis, another development cycle at that point. We would need a new lease and we would need to approach the county again.
Right.
A lot of factors go into that. What equipment's available, how efficient is it, what's the pricing, what's the rate of electricity?
Of course, in 35 years, you'll probably have some more clean energy competition.
So you were looking at what, $150,000 to $175,000 to clean up the site? Is that what you're saying? I think that number's gonna be low. We're talking 35 years down the road. At the rate of inflation today, it'll be $10 million to clean up the site, okay?
Sure.
So, I mean, let's just be real about this. If we're gonna put a bond up,
Yeah.
the money's up, it's going to have to be, in my mind, would have to be a whole lot more than $150,000.
Understood.
So, that's just, I'm bringing concerns up and things that you need to look at.
Yeah.
Because it's questions we're asking hard on. So,
And since we are talking about special exception and things that we can limit this to, I suppose that we could limit it that we didn't want this in our landfill. And it would have to be disposed of in another manner.
I would have to do a little bit of research on that. Of course, as stated before, shoot, I have to do a little bit of research on that before I could give you a 100% answer. As stated before, as you know, the conditions have to be sound, reasonable, and associated with the use of the land. So with that being said, I would have to do, again, a little bit of additional research.
I would really like for you to do that.
Sure, absolutely understood.
I think in 35 years, we probably won't have a landfill where it's at anyway. So it's hard to tell what they will
Probably.
be full by then. So that's
Probably
gonna be
so.
another beast, another thing somebody's going to have to deal with. Visual simulation, material panels, 3-phase. What do you got, Tim?
I just had a question about the oscillating panels. I can't remember from the last one. They don't make much noise. It wouldn't, the neighbors wouldn't hear the motor running to turn the panels, in your experience.
No.
I think y'all have covered my other concerns. The visuals obviously will be a big one for these folks out here. And I appreciate the fact you modified the original one, which we never saw. I think you realized probably that was going to be standing out like a sore thumb, but I do think the additional visual simulations need to be done, especially from, Mackey's Lane, the road across, from all directions, before we can really make an informed decision.
Understood.
Thank you, David. Anybody got anything else on this? With that being said, let's thank you. This time we're going to open a public hearing. If there's anybody physically present who would like to speak, call you up.
The first one, and what I'd like to do is review the people physically present here, then go to the Zoom people, and then I do have, depending on if they comment, I do have a couple that were received under citizen comments. So with that being said, we'll start with the physical speakers. First on the list is Ken Gibson.
One thing I'd like to say, limit your comments 3 minutes if you don't mind. I know there's probably going to be a lot of rinse and repeat here. Please, if you're going to be bringing up the same thing that the last 5 people have brought up to speak about, we got it the first time. I promise you, we got it. Bring up some, if it's something new. If not, you can come up and go exactly what the last guy said. Thank you. So.
Totally understood. I think I could fill 3 hours with all the problems with this project.
Right, but you understand what I'm saying. So everybody gets 3 minutes, and we're gonna hold that pretty tight tonight. So make it happen. So
As fast as I can. That's the view from my house. There's no way to screen that. That's 150 feet of elevation difference. That is the other view. They're talking about putting a stormwater retention pond. There's already clearly a drainage issue off of that property right through under Mackey's Lane. This turns into a swamp already. Without proper stormwater maintenance management, there's going to be a huge issue there. The county thinks this is a prime building spot because they've never been out there to actually examine it. They think that's prime building land and they're charging us taxes accordingly. So then you're going to put how many 9,500 solar panels across the street, and you're going to have constant stormwater runoff. This is where they're going to put the road in. 1,200 feet, they're going to cut into that 7-foot, 8-foot embankment, and that's where they're putting their access road. You're going to completely change the character of Spring Valley. That's looking up Mackey's Lane. We already have issues with traffic on Mackey's Lane. People drive down the middle of a road. And now you're going to have 9,500 solar panels delivered on semi-trucks. How many loads is that? You're going to have 1,200 foot driveway put in. How many loads of gravel is that? You're going to have rails, racks, inverters. All this has to come down Mackey's Lane on this curvy road to be delivered. The panel, Planning Commission has to review this for compliance with the comprehensive plan. It does not comply with the comprehensive plan. This is A2 zoning. This is rural land. This is nothing like the Alexander Farm. 11 is a 4-lane divided road, painted lines. Holocene project, 39, painted lines on the road, shoulders, center lines and on the shoulders. I was on that video call, and CVE, if it doesn't help them, they ignore it. Just like they've realized that really there's no benefit to the county. So what are they proposing today? A revenue sharing agreement? They know that there's essentially no benefit tax-wise. So they're offering money to the county as a revenue stream. In terms of the other facts that they ignore, they're ignoring all the traffic. They're ignoring the entire, our property. They ignore the creek that's there. There is hard metals, maybe not as much in the panels. They have inverters, they have transformers. Another thing they're ignoring, CVE itself has no right to go across farmland and that property on the front. They don't have an easement. Dominion may have an easement, but certainly they're going to put up a set of poles right in front of his house. I mean, this is a picture in his driveway and they're coming down that road. So I understand that's my time, but we appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Next up is Mr. Ted Duke. I'll move this.
Yes, all of that I could hear. You're considering a special exception. Why? What's special? This is not farming. This is farmland. This is agricultural. Why place this array on valuable farmland? Rockbridge farmland is shrinking every month. We lost a local dairy this month because they're going to do a solar array. Why do we have zoning regulations? Because we decided people can't always do what they want to do on their land. So we have regulations. So why are we making a special exception for this? I believe in states' rights and county rights and landowner rights. But why don't we abide by the zoning regulations that we set up? And this county has gone through a big thing about zoning regulations in the last few years. The solar arrays may be a good idea. I suppose they are. I certainly would not argue with apple pie, Chevrolet, and motherhood or solar arrays, but they're an industrial thing. They should be an industrial or a commercial area, or maybe down at the landfill. Be very convenient when they get ready to bury them in 35 years. Or some wasted land. We got a lot of wasted land in Rockbridge County, all along Interstate 81, in between the lanes. all along Interstate 64 in between the lanes. Be a beautiful place to put them. Not on valuable farmland. One final point. Once you make a special exception for something, it's very hard for you to say no afterwards. We did the event center thing. You gave a special exception to have an event center. Somebody else wanted one. You gave them an event center. Somebody else wanted one. You can't very well tell them no anymore. And the same thing now with this. You've opened the door, and how are you going to tell them no? If you give them this one, and Philip Burr, who has 30 acres next door to me, decides he wants to put one in, you're going to tell him no? If the man across the street decides he wants to put one in, you're going to tell him no? If these people who don't like the one they're going to be seeing want to put one in, you're going to tell them no? This special exception should be denied. This is not the place to build solar arrays. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Nick Carlucci. Yes. I was reading your address, so I could figure out the name.
Another Nicholas. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And Chris, thank you for all your great communication and making sure I was up to speed on everything. We have a lot of people that are going to speak. They're going to cover the science. I have a science background. I'm a CEO for a small company. But I'm going to cover the evaluation that if you look at the research.
If you could address the planning commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
If
sir.
you look at the research that the solar industry puts out, it says that there's no impact on real estate. I have a real estate license. Let me tell you something. When you're selling a house next door to power lines, solar farms, or power plants, or anything like that, the property value drops significantly. In fact, most people say, I'm not going to pay that. And so you can't do comps. But, we do comps for houses. You can't do a comp next to a solar field because no one wants to live there. So my house is the last house in Donaldsburg Lane, sits up on the hill. It will look right at that. So it's not like I'm looking at oceanfront or lakefront. I'm going to be looking at these panels that are facing my house. So these trees that these gentlemen are talking about are going to be short. It's going to take about 15 to 20 years for them to block for my view. Having a real estate license, I know that every one of my neighbors who are here, most of them are here, we have around 16, 17 people who own in our neighborhood. So he had $181,000 coming to the county in 25 years. Is that the number I saw? Is that accurate? 181,000
I believe
in
so,
25
yes.
years? Is that?
I believe that was accurate.
Okay,
Yes.
so the value in our neighborhood will come down by 3 times that. Just based on my knowledge of real estate. So they can, if you look at their research, it doesn't impact it. If you do the research I looked at, it's 3 to 8% guaranteed drop. So I actually solicited a researcher from UNC. He's a scientist. Called him. He fights them in North Carolina. And he said, absolutely. So I sent out a document to all my colleagues or my neighbors, and it shows the devaluation in real estate. So anybody that knows this farmland, I moved here from Annapolis almost 20 years ago to get away from stuff like this, to enjoy the beauty of Rockbridge County, being so much land and just gorgeous place to live. I brought my in-laws here. They moved here from Maryland. And many of us have moved here because of how gorgeous this place is. The last thing I want to see on my front porch is a series of panels. Now, I understand solar energy. I have a science background. I understand the power of the sun. But it's not the right place for this. I think our county is about 40 miles long and 40 miles wide. We can't find a spot in 40 miles wide. We have to buy all our houses. They couldn't find another spot. The sun's up here, 45-degree angle. Let's go after it. We don't need to be right there on Mackey's Lane. And like they said, they're going to destroy Mackey's Lane. All those trucks coming in. So my point is, someone else is here is going to come and discuss the science to debunk some of their thoughts. Mine is real estate because I have a background in it. And I know that they will devalue our neighborhood.
Thank you.
Next up is Donald Kirby.
Gentlemen of the Planning Commission, ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, and citizens of Rockbridge County. You just witnessed the end of life here in this county as we know it. And don't tell me it's not true. I know it is. It would be the most awful thing if you take away the agricultural nature of this county. My wife and I moved here in 2007. We moved from a suburb of Washington, D.C. We love where we are. We're the house that's borderline at the end of Donaldsburg Lane. I know some of you have been there. You've taken pictures from our property. It's a terrifying thought to think of getting up in the morning and not being able to see that beautiful cows and corns and sunrise and sunsets, to look at something that I just don't understand why they want it. This gentleman said the Bark people don't get any benefits from this. It's all going to Dominion. But why in the heck didn't they build it up where Dominion is? There's plenty of property up there. Why us? What's the deal here? There's something going on. I'd like to say this. We wonder who's going to benefit from this. We're not. Let me tell you who's going to benefit. This corporation, this conglomerate of money all over the world, they're going to get a little bit more money right here from Rockbridge County. The CCP is going to benefit. If you don't know the CCP, that's the Chinese Communist Party. And don't forget it for a minute. That's where these panels are made. And when they ship them here, they've got chemicals in them. They've got lead. And if you don't think that lead's dangerous, why do you think we quit buying Chinese Christmas tree ornaments? Think about it. They're covered with lead. These things have lead in them, cadmium. The people that are going to benefit live to the south and west of us that are getting the power, but they don't have the problems that we're going to have. What are the problems? What do we get from it here? We get the glare. There's even a word that's developed for it, the glare, this constant sunshine. I've had implants in both eyes. I'm 81 years old. I don't go out without sunglasses, but good golly, this is going to be even worse. And you know where the sunglasses are made? This is an interesting thing. Well, you can guess where all sunglasses are made. We get erosion from it. We get fouled water. I live right down there. Our horses feed down there. I watch the erosion in the water run out down through those hills onto our back property. And with this, it's going to have chemicals in it. Those things leak. I don't care that they crack or they don't crack, they leak. And they haven't mentioned this. They're going to be using herbicides. And I'm not talking about Roundup. They're going to use herbicides to clear the weeds in front of these panels so they don't grow and block the sun. And if that was my whistle, I'll be real quick.
That's your whistle.
Nick talked about the property values, but the watersheds, gentlemen, it's going to get in our aquifers. It's going to poison us. I hope we're not witnessing the end of the beginning, but I think we're witnessing the beginning of the end.
And Mr. Kirby, could you tell me your first name? I must have. Tom.
Thomas D.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Leanne Gibson.
Good evening, gentlemen. I have some prepared remarks, but given your interest in not hearing things repeated, our family moved from the DC area to Rockbridge County because of the three young people that you see seated behind me. And they are the reason that I'm standing here today. Our family owns and works on Morningstar Meadows. It is the farm that is directly across from the property in question. And I want to have the opportunity someday for one or more of my children to be able to continue farming our land. And the concerns already brought up, I will not rehash them. But we run cattle on our property. We have raised chickens and ducks. We have hogs. We are a small operation, but our family has invested blood, sweat, tears, and an awful lot of money to get our farm operational. And I would hate for the granting of a special exception permit to jeopardize not necessarily my future. I may or may not be here in 35 years, but by God's grace, those three people sitting behind me will be. and they will have this land in some way, shape, or form. And I believe it is my responsibility, not only as their mother, but as a member of this community, to pass it on in better condition than I found it. And again, I don't want to rehash at this point, but even if CVE, which is a 12-year-old company, could guarantee that in 35 years, which is, if my math is correct, never been my strong point, is about twice as long as the company has been around, could completely decommission this facility. There is no doubt that the land, or I'm sorry, that the character of our valley would just not be the same. And with the potential for the dangers to our land and to our the water, I find this to be a huge reason to say this is A2 property. It needs to stay A2 property. We, as the Commonwealth, have already lost enough of our land. I believe, according to USDA, we lost 800 farms in Virginia last year and 100,000 acres of farmland last year. And so this isn't just about one property being converted. This is about the effect on all the farmland around it. Companies like CVE are not in Rockbridge County for the long haul. CVE doesn't care whether my land or the land my family has invested in becomes a blessing or a burden to my children and grandchildren. So I urge the Planning Commission to show that my family's faith in Rockbridge County is not misplaced by urging the Board of Supervisors to reject this. And I wanted to just show you, since a picture is worth 1,000 words.
Thank
The
you.
work of my daughter. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I apologize, forgot to stop sharing. So with that, I'll start showing the screen. Next up is Cynthia Romilly Cater. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. As you can see, we're all very concerned about this issue. As you can tell, many of us love that valley. This is our valley. We own property there. Most Virginia farms are 50 to 100 acres. That's what we're looking at here. What's happened is you've taken A2 and you want to change it to an industrial site. I didn't buy land in an industrial site. I would not have bought that property if it was an industrial site. It is not just a solar place to have nice solar panels. It is an industrial site. Would you want that in your backyard? I mean, think about it. Do you want to have solar panels of 9,500 in your backyard? I don't think so. And he says it's not going to affect traffic. I'm sorry, but Ecodeso has brought much traffic into our area. I mow along Mackey's Lane weekly in the summer, spring, and fall. I've almost been hit on my lawn tractor. If their plans are accurate, it shows the overhead lines going down Mackey's Lane on my side of the road. You put more poles, I have to mow around more. Take my life in my hands now. So I'm not really interested in having their overhead lines, whether it's theirs or Dominion's. I love our valley and I want to keep it as pristine as it is. You live nearby. You want your valley pristine as possible. That's what we're asking for. We don't want to disrupt the cornfield that is being used right now. We're being sold by the Virginia VTech people that we have to have carbon credits. We can't till the soil. We have to have more prairies. We have to have more trees. So our carbon footprint isn't very large. They're selling this stuff to us if you go to their meetings. They want us to put more carbon into the land. Let's see these guys put more carbon into the land by not disturbing it, by not digging big holes with posts. Let's not extend our carbon footprint. They didn't talk about the carbon footprint for manufacture of those panels. It's not happening here. It's happening in China. Okay, but you and I both know the jet stream brings it here. Let's reduce our carbon footprint. Let's here in Rockbridge County, at least, my grandchildren deserve that. Thank you for listening to us.
Next up
Thank you.
is Stephen Camper.
Good evening. I live across Mackey's Lane from the proposed power plants. That's my wife. I have a lot of reasons for not thinking that this is a bad idea. Not necessarily solar energy is, but this plant and this location. And Mr. Sladen has a letter from me that has a lot of points. I'll emphasize 5. First of all, none of the immediate neighbors are in favor of this project. None. My family has surveyed them all. We haven't heard any one of them that wants this project here. Second, it will affect the property values. Mr. Carlucci referred to that. There was a study from the University of Rhode Island in 2020. They looked at 400,000 real estate transactions that were located near 208 solar power plants. And they found that properties within a mile, that's a long way away, average dropped in value 1.7%. Within a tenth of a mile, average dropped 7% in value between before and after the solar plants were built. Third point, there will be no net benefit to Rockbridge County financially. We've discussed that. No new jobs, no new taxes, no new tax revenue. We don't get to share the profits, as he was talking about. Those of us that live right next to it. But even the Dominion customers will not save any money, because even the subscribers to them will have to pay $55 every month to Dominion to subscribe. This has been allowed by the SCC. You can look it up. And therefore, they have to pay $55 just for the privilege of saving up to 10% on their monthly bill. So no one's really going to save any money by subscribing to this project. We talked about the waste disposal problems. We also talked about the problems with screening. This is an elevated property. They did lower it only 60 feet. If you look at their drawings closely, you can see the contour lines. They brought it down 60 feet. That's going to help, but there's still no possible way to adequately screen this. It's too high, and there's too many high properties that look across the valley. You can't put a 100-foot tree out there, and even if you could, it would take till the end of the project before they were tall enough. Okay, number 5, there's going to be a lot more proposals like this coming into Rockbridge County. Because of the Virginia Clean Energy or Clean Economy Act, Dominion's required to eliminate all carbon producing electricity generation by 2045. They're struggling to do that. One of the things they've done with the shared solar is they're going to generate 16,000 megawatts of solar energy by 2035. That means there's going to be thousands more projects just like this, thousands more 30-acre arrays across the state. Rockbridge County is a target because it's got a 500 kilovolt high tension line going down the middle of it. And there's a number of Dominion customers here. So just want you to think about planning for the future. We really need to come up with a county plan for how we're going to handle these proposals. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Rebecca Smith.
Get that right? Okay, fair enough.
Good evening, gentlemen. I also am a resident of Donaldsburg Lane. So my neighbors and friends have pretty much said what I think needs to be said. My husband and I relocated here from Southern California 13 years ago because we fell in love with the hills and the mountains and the green valley and meadows. If I wanted to look at solar panels, I would have stayed in Southern California. So I'm not opposed to green energy, but this is not the appropriate place for it. It needs to be in a commercial area, not in an agricultural rural area where people have owned these farms for generations. I just have one little aside note, hasn't been brought up. We live in a big hunting area. And I can see these panels being an attractive nuisance is what it's called. Because there's a lot of gunfire that goes off in our area. And they're going to be replacing these panels at a pretty rapid rate, I think. So anyway, I would hate to see my move be in vain, because I left my family in California to move here. And I hope to live here the rest of my life. And I would hate to see this become part of our county. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim Jackson. And next up is Jan Hill. Jan Hall, excuse me.
Good afternoon, men. I purchased a house on Woodland Hill Lane from where the solar panel backs right up to Woodland Hill Lane. My house is at the top of the hill. The whole lane is a family-owned lane. We all moved from California to get away from the glare and the problems of solar. I know people that have worked on large solar fields in California. There's been truck accidents where they've plowed through these fields. You can see where they've simply replaced a panel. The broken glass is still all over the ground. The cleanup's terrible. These guys are not even from California. It's a out of the country company. They're going to be saying, oh, those poor bastards, just like we do about Ukraine right now. It's terrible. So this is the wrong place for it. The environmental impact is crazy. My wife has medical issues. The impact from what these panels put off. We didn't move from California, leave our families as well to be living in a solar panel area and disposing of these things. I've seen them throw them in dumpsters. They go to landfills. It's terrible. Wrong place for it. Wrong county.
Next up is Jan Hall.
Well, I don't have much to say, supervisors, but I tell a lot of our relatives, we moved to God's country, lived through Detroit as a kid during the war years, also in Ohio for many years, and then over 40 years in California. And I always tell people, this is God's country right here. This is so beautiful. Even our section of 11 is gorgeous. And then them to say that this doesn't hurt property values, that's crazy. Nobody believes that. And I don't know if there's anybody here. I noticed they put out that letter. It's over my head and I forgot my hearing aids today, so I'm having a trouble even keeping up with what's going on. But that first letter that we got, I noticed they took the picture in the summertime when you can't see any of the houses, all you see is trees. They used it. It was a perfect angle to look like, oh, nobody's got a problem with this. Well, that's not the way it is. We're right behind that little wooded area, right on the other side. My son-in-law and a few others, we're probably as close as anyone. The only thing is we do have the benefit of not having that thing, so everybody on Mackey Lane there has to look at that. Of all the places in Virginia, why don't they pick a nice hillside and build some trees around it? Some desert area. Why this? They must have got a deal. I mean, they're businessmen. I know how that goes. But this is not good for us. I'm supposing that some people got this letter that we got. I didn't quite pick up on it, but it looked like they said, well, they have moved the site, or they have moved where these panels are going to be. I missed it on the map there. We're all on Woodland Hill Lane. We're going up 11 right up to the top of that little ridge there. And I thought, oh wow, we got wildlife comes through there all the time. We have bears, we have coyotes, we have deer, and there's a little creek that goes back there, and that's gonna go somewhere. Many years ago, I worked at the golf course here in Lexington, out after I retired the first time. And we had a thing there where somebody left the poison up at the top of the hill there, and it drained down and it went into one of the creeks there, and it went on forever. Well, there's a little creek right on our side of that. I don't know, that could be Sheep Creek. That's what the name, it was been given to them by some of the people that lived there. Well, we moved on, I moved there in 2005, and we kind of follow each other around, and this is just beautiful around here. And, you know, I thought,
Your
oh,
time's up, sir.
great. It's,
Your time's up, sir.
okay.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so much.
anyways, I'm against it, as you might understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's everyone physically signed up, but we'll recognize anyone that likes to speak now. If you could come up, state your name and magisterial district.
Could you repeat that when you get to the microphone?
My name's Ed Woodward. I live on Mackey's Lane. I parrot everything everybody said here. I'm not going to waste your time repeating that. But I don't think you guys have half the people here who could be here to tell you how much we absolutely do not want this project. I don't know any of your backgrounds, gentlemen. Mr. Lucas, you had a lot of insight to the gentleman who was thinking about the kennels, things that I wouldn't even have thought of. And that's what I just want to remind you of. This is a company to make money. They aren't working for the government. They aren't here to save our atmosphere, to save the birds. They're here to make money. They have people who have got that in their hands to make a profit. They listed the things that they said were concerns for the city. We never listed a concern that we were not getting a subsidy from them for putting that in, or we never asked for their help. They said, oh, you have a concern because they told us it's not going to benefit you. The company is leasing 50 acres or so. There's 100 out there. If you were a businessman, when we start getting to the 25-year period, you're just going to pick up and leave. You got shareholders and everybody else. No, there's going to be another lease, and you're going to be talking just like laddering CDs, 50 more acres, 50 more acres. Before you know it, you got mission creep. Everybody knows what that is. This is not going to start. It starts when we make that first decision that this is no big deal. This is only 50 acres on a 100-acre mountain. That's where it starts. And take all that aside. It's not, oh, we pay our taxes, we pay our taxes. You guys do a great job of taking care of the roads for us and clearing the snow and all that. This is where our money hits the road. We're asking you guys to think about us as a community. Think about the property values they say are going up. You know why they're going up? Because they're going to zone it industrial and they're going to go up. So how does anybody else benefit it? You sell it to developers, and you take advantage of the new zoning regulation. So anyway, just keep in mind the impact that this is going to have on a family. I've been here for 21 years, raised my two boys here. It's now they're up doing their thing. They come down, it's Papa's farm. I can't believe I'm thinking that I can't keep this in the family. Because this thing encroaches and starts down the path it's heading. It's a nightmare for us. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? If not, I'm gonna check the internet. If there's anyone online that would like to speak during this public hearing, please use your raise hand button now. We do have, I believe it's Mr. or Mrs. Bailey. I'm gonna allow you to talk, and if you could state your name and magisterial district. You are on mute now. If you could unmute, we could hear you. There you go. You have the state your name and magisterial district, please.
My name is Gail Bailey, and I'm in the South River District. you hear
Thank
me?
you. Go ahead. Yes. we
Okay.
can- go ahead.
I live on Mackey's Lane, right in the very neighborhood as many of these people who have spoken. And I just want to say that we totally agree with everything that has been said. We are totally against this solar array project. We have lived here for almost 22 years now, raised our children here, and moved into this valley because it was beautiful and serene. And yeah, did not want to come into a zoning such as this man is discussing. So I just wanted to agree with everyone.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? That now is the appropriate time to raise your hand. While we give a few more minutes on there, I do have, of course, last Thursday or Friday, I emailed all correspondence that the Planning Commission had gotten, including the ones that were mailed in during the bona fide citizen comment, PC citizen comments at Rockbridge County. But we do have, I believe, we had several of us prepared to read, but they have already spoken. But I do have one that did not have an opportunity to speak and had mailed it into the citizen comment period. So it's appropriate to read that. This is from Chad and Melissa Mayer, M-A-Y-R. To whom it may concern, Melissa and I would like to express our strong opposition to the proposed solar project near Mackey's Lane. When we moved to the area 6 years ago, we chose Fairfield over Lexington due to the incredible views surrounding farmland and absence of industrial / commercial presence. Since moving here, we have worked hard to be good neighbors and citizens. We have invested our time and resources improving our property and our property's value. In addition of this project, the addition of this project would undoubtedly have a negative effect on our entire neighborhood's desirability and resale value. I would not have bought a home near a solar field if it was already in place. Unfortunately, due to the proposed placement, there is no way we can avoid seeing the eyesore every day as it sits right up front our front and side views. It would destroy the pastoral views we brought this property to enjoy. Additionally, dispute the claims of CVE, we receive little or to no benefit from this project. To be frank, even if we did receive a measly discount on utility bills, it would not make this project acceptable. I hope you will take not only ours, but the majority of the entire neighborhood's opposition to this project into consideration and vote no to this project as it hurts those who actually live and work here day in and day out. Thank you for your service community and sincerely considering our concerns. Again, Chad and Melissa Mayer, I believe, M-A-Y-E-R, 160 Donaldsburg Lane. And so again, with that being said, I did email many emails to y'all last Thursday or Friday, but these were included in those emails, but this one did not have an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Chris.
We have no more hands raised. I think there is appropriate to be a discussion if we're going to continue this public hearing or close it prior to moving forward.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of unanswered questions here that, and some of them were brought up, or I brought a lot of them up earlier. I don't know if Tim or anybody's got anything you want to bring up. But the three-phase poles, first, how high they're going to be, what they're going to be, materials in the panels, and or any other materials in any of the rest of the equipment that's going to be on site that could have potential leakage or cause any issues. The visual simulations, I feel sure that Gibson would be more than glad to let you drive up on his hill and take a photo, or he'll give you a photo that you could take or Chris, a photo where you could do a photo simulation of what he's going to be looking at. Disposal broken panels. I'm not too keen myself even on having them in the landfill, but that's something you need to look at. There's definitely not enough money in there to clean this thing up. That's a given. I may have been even low on my high figure that I wrote earlier. The stormwater management ponds, I think you underestimated those by at least 2. I think some clarification, a good clarification on where that road's going in. From what I understand, you're going to be going in the existing entrance? Or is it gonna be moved down? Moved down. So you need to have a visual simulation of where it's gonna be going in at a good one. So so that everybody can see it, including us. What are you gonna be spraying underneath the panels with? Are you gonna spray underneath the panel? I understand, you know, you can raise sheep under them, which would be one way of keeping the grass down or weeds or whatever it might be down. I think from anything I've heard, it's been sheep is about the only thing, no cattle, no goats, from what I understand. But spraying underneath them definitely gives me some concern. We'd want to know what's going to be getting sprayed on the ground and whether it can go down into the water table, because we do have a Clark water table here. So something we've got to look at. I guess that's all I've got, unless Tim or David's got something that I missed. I hope
We got it all.
covered a lot of it, but and if we do have anything else, if any of us do have any concerns, we'll get with Chris.
Yes, sir.
Let Chris contact you and let you know what's going on. But I think we need to continue this. And do we want to leave the public hearing side of it open, or do we want to close that side of it?
It's definitely at the will of the planning commission. Of course, if we do continue it, it will be a bona fide public hearing next month. And that includes certified mail to all the adjoining property owners, ads in the newspaper, but obviously staff is happy to do that and actually prefers it in some ways.
I think we need to, I think we need to leave it open and leave a public hearing side of it open too, because there may be some concerns or something that comes up along the way there, or somebody else may want to come in and speak that didn't have opportunity tonight to show up and for or against it. So
does that require a motion to continue, Ms. Huffman? Okay. So that would be a motion to continue the public hearing until bear with me here. That is going to be the May 11th Planning Commission meeting. Same time, same place.
I will make that motion to continue to the May 11th meeting. Keep the public hearing open.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank
All
y'all.
right, thank
y'all, gentlemen and ladies. Thank everybody for all your comments.
We have a couple more agenda items, of course, but if we
Yes.
want to take a very brief recess
Fine.
or a brief break, I should say, not a recess, but brief break to let everybody.
10 minutes?
That's 5 minutes. I think 5 minutes would be fine.
That gives people time to clear out.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I go problem all around, but
Yes, yes. Now, did you?
Chad wasn't the only one.
Yeah, I'd send all.
appreciate it.
Okay, yeah, and I apologize. Okay.
Look, this morning,
All right, but thank you.
decrease in that sign. Because I'm waiting, it would have been up the hill, I believe they would have had somebody waiting on the back.
It's the Commissioner Revenue's office. So if you touch base with Commissioner Revenue, and I can give you, or you can Google, I can give you a phone number if you want. Yeah, it's right here, but they're closed now, but it have to be during.
All my stickers here, they know my address, but they mailed all this stuff to California.
Okay, so it's, here, let's do this.
How are you?
What happened to the April 13th thing for the school?
I'll come back here tomorrow.
Did you get here late?
Do you have the mailing list? Yes, I should have.
15, 20 minutes?
We approved it. Not a bit. On to the board. Now, our two ladies both had a health issue arise instantly. Yes.
Did you go find a change?
That was at that other
Okay,
meeting.
so it might be updates. This was mailed out. When did you get your stickers? Before. Okay, so this may be, let me put a star by you. In fact, what is a good phone number for you, sir? 660. 153.
Two guys.
Okay, what I'll do is I'll make a mental note of it before we search it. If you update it with the Commissioner Revenue Office, it'll automatically update.
What do they do?
But if it's not, I'll check on this. Essentially.
It'll get sorted out. They can't do it unless they're not.
That's exactly how it's always.
I'll follow.
Okay, now,
None of those things really had any.
listen up. Good.
There just had to be a little reality check as to what we do and what we don't. And I finessed these two guys. And we got on the same page and you know, this is a good project. Listen, I've had a lot of hey, right now, I've even been accused of being on the take. Oh, yeah, I can care less. I didn't come here to be.
I'm not sure. You know, funny enough, or not.
And you know, I can't for the
Mr.
life
Lucas and I were talking about that on Saturday, and I don't.
neighbors did not embrace it.
One more sold off the big chunk.
One more to go.
I think they sold off the big chunk.
I think the applicants here.
Well, that, what has to happen is that
While I was thinking.
accident generated
See the pictures? That was good with it.
You don't mind if I leave, do you?
You do whatever you want to do. Oh, if one you stay up one night, I understand that too.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe that would go better.
I'm with you. It's my first one.
Yeah. Come eat the grass and absorb the toxic matter.
I believe.
But it ain't done. It goes to the planning.
The board of supervisors. We're just a recommending.
Yeah. What do you think? I mean, you're in it. You know this, guys. What do you think?
Chris, you ready to reconvene? Let's do it. Let's get this done. Nice to meet you.
I'll see you out there. See each other at a barbecue.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're moving on to item, or agenda item number 8, which is CNS disposal. 153 Sherwood Lane, Natural Bridge Station, Virginia. Application to amend a condition associated with a previously approved special exception permit for a junk storage and automobile salvage yard in the general industrial I-1 zoning district.
Yes, and bear with me here. I do not have a PowerPoint presentation for you, but I would like to start with a map of the property, essentially a development map, and review some details here. I'm gonna pull this up. Mr. Steve Flint is in attendance representing the project. All right. So Mr. C. Flint with CNS Disposal has made an application to amend the existing special exception permit to operate a scrap metal yard in the industrial zoning district. That's the general industrial zoning district I-1. The property is identified as 153 Sherwood Lane, Natural Bridge Station, and is owned by Flint Ridge Properties LLC. The property is located on the east side of Warwick Faulkner Highway, approximately 450 feet west of the intersection of Lloyd Tolley Road and Warwick Faulkner Highway. Further identified as tax map numbers 113E2-3-2 through 10 and 113E2-3-3-A and B. The original special exception was approved by the Board of Supervisors on February 26, 2018, and included a condition that the primary storage for the scrap metal be inside a building. The application includes removing this condition and also includes the addition of salvaging machinery and or vehicles per section 607 .03-7 of the regulation, junk storage and automobile graveyards, holding yards, and salvage yards is a use by special exception in the I-1 district. The application is for junk storage and automobile salvage yard, which includes 5 vehicles or less. The property is located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. And so with that being said, in the report, I apologize, it was the same as the last, same as the original kennel. I did not have an opportunity to draft conditions associated with the property. Of course, in your package, you have a letter from Mr. Flint explaining the details of the property, the application itself, and then also the development plan of the property. And so I'm going to leave this up for discussion purposes. And in fact, I've have stopped sharing my screen, so bear with me here. And so this development plan titled Flint Ridge Properties LLC actually it has a March 16th, 2022 date. But Ms. Huffman passed out some draft recommendation, or excuse me, draft conditions that could be utilized the same as the other projects. And so some draft conditions that could be utilized with this particular application is number 1, development of the property, and it won't reiterate the tax maps. We already did that. For which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan titled Flint Ridge Properties dated April 13th, 2022. And I apologize, I wrote that, but that should be a March 13th, 2022, March 16th, 2022. Number 2, no more than 5 inoperable motor vehicle, no more than 5 inoperable vehicles. And number 3, subject to approval, subject to all federal, state, and local regulations pertaining to junk storage / salvage yards. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Flint to review additional details of the project and or to review any questions the commission members may have. And I'll leave this up for discussion purposes for now.
Thank you.
Well, I'm here tonight for the purpose of amending this permit. And Chris has gone over pretty well what we're intending. We've gotten to a volume now that we cannot store everything that we have on hand inside at one time. And I need to be able to move outside. Also, if machinery, vehicle, anything that comes in that needs fluids removed, need to be able to process that, get it in, get it out. That's pretty much what we're after.
All right.
I was going to say, I took a site visit and went around the property, and I appreciate all the improvements you've made to it. It's really looking a whole lot better. And as far as moving the outdoor scrap yard from the Greenlee Bridge to this property, I think that'll be a added benefit for you and visually going into the valley, if you will, too. So I think it's a good project to win-win, makes sense, and I don't have any concerns about the 5 vehicles. So.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Steve.
All right, appreciate it.
At this time, we're going to open up to a public hearing. If there's anybody physically who would like to speak, please speak up or step up.
I think it's just us now. There's no one physically signed up to speak. With that being said, I will, now is the appropriate time. If you would like to make a public comment pertaining to the CNS disposal application, please raise your hand now. Not seeing any, I will turn the floor back over to the chair.
With no one here to speak or on Zoom to speak, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to us. I think it's a good piece of property, and for what Mr. Flint is asking to do, and 5 inoperable vehicles. I'm like you, David, I don't have a problem with that at all. So, and the one thing that he's got going on, there's going to be a lot of regulation you're going to have to deal with anyway from state and federal side to make sure you're doing things right. And yeah, keeping oil and the fluids for coverage one of them, I know. So it's a huge one. So and it's a lot more than it used to be when you're in a salvage yard or a junkyard, that's for sure. So, anything, Tim?
No, I'm perfectly fine with it.
All right.
All right,
Yeah, I'm ready for a motion, but I will note that I incorrectly inserted April 13th, 2022, and that should be March 16th, 2022 on the date of that. I'm sorry, on the date of the Flint Ridge properties map.
I make a motion to recommend to the Board of Supervisors that the amended special exception permit to remove the condition that the primary storage area for the scrap metal shall be inside a building to permit operation of a scrap metal yard per LDR section 602.03-7 in the general industrial I-1 zoning district on property at 153 Sherwood Lane, Natural Bridge Station in the Natural Bridge Magisterial District, identified as tax map numbers 113E2-3-2 through 10 and 113E2-3-A and B, be approved with the following conditions. Number one, the development of the property for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan titled Flint Ridge Properties dated March 16th, 2022. Number two, no more than 5 inoperable vehicles. And 3, approval subject to all federal, state, and local regulations pertaining to junk storage salvage yards.
Got a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Flint.
Sir, our next step is with the supervisors on the 25th at 6 p.m., same place, different time. Thank you.
We'll move on to zoning text amendment discussion.
Yes, as indicated in the email that I sent to the Planning Commission and Board of Supervisors, we have been approached by a gentleman that is interested in developing a auction sales lot essentially. And so the sale of the yard would include sales, but not necessarily limited to large equipment, semi trucks, trailers, farm equipment, estate sales, and auto auctions. And so looking at the land development regulations, we have provisions for livestock markets and we have provisions for sales pavilions. And so I was not comfortable considering this a sale pavilion under the current definition. So I thought it'd be beneficial for both the gentleman that approached the county inquiring about this particular use, the county itself, and essentially all parties involved to further, if the Planning Commission is willing, to further define what a auction sale yard would be, and then either provide that as a permitted use or a use by special exception in the business zoning district. So everyone would be essentially on firm footing, on the same footing and firm footing moving forward with the proposal. Okay. And I do know the gentleman that was referenced in the email is Mr. Sam Bennett. He is in attendance via Zoom this evening. It's not necessary. If y'all would like him to speak on the project, that's fine. But of course, I always try to disenfranchise the individual property or the individual itself from the zoning text amendment, because of course this would be a county-wide zoning text amendment in all business zones.
Okay. I'm good right now with as far as him not speaking, but everybody else is. What
The direction, essentially what I wanted to do is obviously the process is the normal process under a zoning text amendment was to one, place it on the Board of Supervisors. The Board of Supervisors, I'm sorry, the Planning Commission can move forward, initiate a zoning text amendment by a motion. The Board of Supervisors is required to do a resolution, I believe. With that being said, the gentleman approached us a few weeks ago, and I was delinquent on getting it out just with some internal discussions and further verifying that it's not a permitted use at this time. With that being said, the direction I'm looking from the Planning Commission is essentially to instruct staff to look at what other localities potentially define a auction sales yard research if y'all would think it to be a permitted use in a business zone or use by special exception, define it and then provide for it. Also, we always are cognitive of other definitions in the surrounding localities, similar localities, I should say. So we're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense. This reminds me like Motley's down in Richmond where they got the big, where there is what it kind of resembles, except for it may all, he's wanting to do something outside, I think, all the way, maybe not have buildings right now.
The initial phase, it's a multi-year development on this particular one. And the initial phase, I think, would be open air auctions and then futuristic plans to build an enclosed structure or potentially enclosed structure, do some of the auctions in.
You know, just in neighboring Augusta County, we have Howes who has a sale. It's consignment, you know, and
right.
And sort of along those lines.
Yeah.
Question, can we firm this up where it wouldn't be a use by special exception, where it would be?
Desire of the planning commission, absolutely. And that can be part of the discussion, you know, depending on how we define it and how we provide for it. That certainly could be part of the direction at next month's meeting. Would be discussion, and it would review the proposed zoning text amendment. Theoretically, we can get with other localities and see what they're doing. And then at next month's, you could actually instruct staff to take it to a public hearing if it's the desire of the planning commission.
Let's see let me dig up what you can find in other localities, especially here in the valley, and see what they've got. One of the things I think, I mean, of course, we're always looking at, if you're going to level off a spot of ground, there's always stormwater management. There's always, if you bring in vehicles and equipment, there's going to be some, what are you going to do to make sure there's not any pollution from anything leaking from any of the equipment or vehicles that are brought in there, because you don't know what you're going to bring in.
Sure.
It's one of the things that I would look at, because I'm sure it's probably going to be a gravel lot to start with. It's not going to be a paved lot or anything. And this is a property that in your district, I think, over along interstate, correct? That's where we're looking at some of the Smith property.
It is, yes, sir. It's propelling this use forward.
Right, propelling, so, right. So, I mean,
well, I'd certainly like to take a look at all of those things, and I would really like to firm it up where it wasn't a use by special exception, where that
permitted use.
Yeah. Do we do a permitted use, or do you want to do it? Because I mean, it may not every, I like special exceptions sometimes on certain items, because it gives you the ability to make sure that it is a proper use for a piece of property, and not just a blanketed, yes, you can use it. If it is, we're going to vote for it. So,
well, I agree with everything you're saying. I just think that some of these things could be handled administratively and defined well enough that we probably wouldn't have to be so cluttered up. And I use that term
certainly
loosely, but you know, I'm not at all calling this project clutter.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just saying that I would like to, you know, I'd like to see both sides of that. I don't have a problem with it continuing to be used by special exception if that's the way we decide. But if it is a possibility that we could create a permitted use, I would like to see that.
And I always find it, truthfully, I find it fascinating, if you will. That might not be the word I'm looking for, but how other localities define it and then how they provide for it. And so again, not reinventing the wheel. I think we'll all learn from that research project that staff will perform between now and the May meeting.
And if it doesn't fit for that, I'm perfectly happy with use by special exception.
Certainly understood.
I'm with Tim, like, but let's see what everybody else is doing. Let's see what they've got in place, and I mean, if it's permitted in most rest areas, we certainly can go down that road. I just know there's a lot of areas that things don't fit in.
Well, that's exactly right. We've been to those places, Robert. I will guarantee you.
Certainly.
We'll be there again. You need anything else? I mean, is that it from us on
That's
that?
it. There's just the direction for staff to research it and provide some additional information at the May meeting. Yes, sir.
Next meeting. That's it.
Yes.
That's what we
And I will
need.
say Zach is big into auctions and does a lot of different things in auctions. So I think he's going to find this one interesting. Also gave some examples in Rockingham County that he's familiar with as far as similar uses.
But,
So
I mean, there's a lot of places up and down the valley and then, like I say, across in Richmond that do this, and there's a need for it.
certainly, I
That's all it
agree.
is.
Yes.
All right, well, if that's it, need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And I will second it.
All right, all in
Thank you all.
favor?
Thank you all
Aye.
very